Welcome to my off-grid adventures. I'm Frank, my puppy Pumpkin's with me today, and we're glad that you're here with us as we're going to do a little bit better and more thorough job of protecting our new fruit trees from the deer. We had heard that hanging a bar of Irish Spring soap from each tree would help them and would keep us from needing any other more drastic measures, but although that did work well for the first few weeks, after 6 weeks or so, it seemed to stop being a deterrent. Maybe I should have just put new soap out to see if it lasted again, but instead I just wanted to make sure we protected these trees that we really want to have survive and produce some great cherries and Honeycrisp apples for us out here. So I decided to go with the fence route. When I first started researching what I needed to buy to better protect these trees, I couldn't find any good answers online. So I wanted to publish this video after I learned the things that I learned, so that hopefully you can know what you need to do to get started with protecting your trees from deer. I'm going to start by answering 7 questions in case that's all you need from this video, and then if you want, you can stick around to the end and watch the process of building these tree fence rings. The 7 questions are: what did it cost? What materials were used? How long did it take? How many people were needed? How much fence is required for each tree? What tools were used? And what do I wish I had done differently? First, how much did this cost? It was about $250 for everything except for a couple of tools, and that was for 6 trees. So each tree averaged about $45 for the main materials, closer to $60 if you count the tree watering bags that I already had. What materials were used? I bought a 100-foot roll of 4-foot tall fence, and that was more than enough for 6 trees. It turns out that you only need about 6 to 8 foot for each tree. I used 3 6-foot T-posts for each tree, so that was a total of 18. I had 3 packs of 25 fence clips. I used 3 clips for each post, which when multiplied by 18 posts was 54 clips. I already had 6 slow-release tree watering bags, but that's something you might want to get if you don't have them, and if you don't have access to a fresh water source. How long did this take? It took a little less than 2 hours. How many people are needed? It can be done by one person, but it's always nice to have another set of hands. How much fence is required for each tree? This was my biggest question. I had no idea how much to buy. I almost purchased 2 rolls because I thought it might take more than it did. For these trees, which include 3 apple trees and 3 cherry trees, it took about 7 feet of fence for most of them. I ended up with a lot left over from the 100-foot roll. And I'm so glad I didn't buy 2 because they are much larger than they appear in the photo. I don't think I could have fit 2 in my Tesla Model Y. What tools did I use? I used a sledgehammer, a wire cutter, and needle nose pliers. I used a 10-pound sledgehammer, which I chose only because it was the closest tool near me for the job when I started, but I wish I had used a small mallet. The sledgehammer was overkill, and it was too difficult to wield, and actually I could have hurt myself more with it. Any of these types of mallets would have worked fine, and I have a few of them, just they were on the other side of the property. Sometimes being lazy doesn't work out to your advantage. I had a 9-inch wire cutter that was made for this gauge of metal, which is 14 gauge. The fence itself is 14 gauge metal. Don't try to use normal side clip wires or something for household electrical. This wire cutter by Crescent made it a breeze to clip through each fence piece. I had needle nose pliers. My everyday carry is a Leatherman Arc, which has needle nose pliers in it, but any pair of needle nose pliers would work. What do I wish I had done differently? I wish I had used work gloves because there are many dangerous sharp components from every edge of the post to the sharp edges of each row of wire in the fence. My hands and arms are covered with band-aids today, and some of those cuts are pretty deep. I wish I had brought my wagon to haul everything from tree to tree because the fence roll was very heavy and awkward to move. The sledgehammer was also heavy, and so were the posts. I have a nice new Gorilla wagon that I bought recently from Costco. I can't believe I was too short-sighted to take the time to go get it from the other end of the property. It would have made this project quite a bit easier. I get lazy sometimes about walking back and forth to grab tools and supplies because it seems like that's all that I do, but I need to be smarter about this kind of thing. Now let's walk through the process. I started by watering each tree. Since we're off-grid and have no fresh water here, we bring 5-gallon water jugs and refill them with free potable water from a local gas station. I had been using a Ziploc bag with a rubber band over each one to keep the jug from spilling water in transit. But after making a mess of it more than one time, I found these jug plugs on Amazon, and they're easier to put on and take off than the cap that comes with these from Home Depot. Plus, they stay secure even when the jugs tip over. After watering each tree, I drove 3 posts into the ground around each one, placing them so that the fence ring would be outside the limbs, or close enough at least so that the limbs could gently be placed against the inside of the ring. I started driving each post into the ground with my boot, but the edge of the post is very sharp, and you could easily cut your shoe and maybe your foot, so I don't recommend doing it this way. Just push it down with glove-covered hands until it stays in place. Make sure to have the ridges or the bumps facing you, with the pointed end of the T-post facing the tree. I then unraveled enough fence around the post to determine how much I needed for each one. I cut each of the rows of wire with those wire cutters that I mentioned earlier, and then I positioned the fence so that there's a post where the 2 ends of the fence meet. For the first tree, I didn't do this. Instead, I took the wire that was holding the fence together and cut it into pieces and used those pieces to secure both ends of the fence together. But not only was that unnecessary, it also wasn't as strong or secure as putting the clips over both pieces of the fence and then around the post. Lift the fence ring up high enough so that the branches are protected from deer. Remember, they can reach up quite high when they're on their back legs. And also make sure that the fence is high enough to leave room to access the slow-release water bags at the bottom. Those bags serve 2 important purposes. They keep the trees hydrated, and they protect the trunk from animals. By the way, the main reason I didn't want to use a fence to begin with was thinking that I'd have to take it apart to water them. Now I realize that lifting the fence solves that problem, but even if the fence were on the ground, it isn't difficult to remove the fence clips temporarily. Or you could just put a PVC pipe to divert water into the bag from outside of the fence. After lifting the fence, rest it on the notches of each post while you place those 3 fence clips on each one. Try to keep the fence ring as level as you can while you do this. And then you're done, and you're ready to move on to the next tree. Well, thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to see more content about living off-grid in Michigan or how to do projects like this, please subscribe. We'd love to have you join us. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.